I know you just kind of snuck it in there, but you just said, I started crack.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where did that sort of hit? Like, where did that come about?
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about, right? Because I know some of our viewers, like, where does it start? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I'm going to leave the first story out since this is going to be public.
Yeah.
But the second time I was in my apartment, and my neighbor, that apartment was chaotic. Yeah. And my neighbor, I was smoking weed on a pipe, and my neighbor came over and he's like, why are you smoking weed on that pipe? Try some of this. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, it's crack. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, why not? And it was just very casual. And he put it on the end of the pipe. And like, I can hear the crackling right now, you know? I melted it down and that was it. It was off to the races, you know?
What was that feeling that you felt the first time you smoked crack? Like, was it different than or similar to the feeling that you had when you had that first sip of alcohol?
Yeah, so the first sip of alcohol, I say, was really more of almost like a medicinal feeling, because that was like getting rid of a lot of emotional pain I was in, like spiritual and emotional pain. It kind of, the crack was a rush. It was just like, it was a rush, you know? It was an escape too, but it really was just such a rush. And it's just so intense. Anyone who's done crack knows that it's such an intense, immediate high. It's very hard to describe, and it's almost not comparable to any other drug. That's why it's so addictive, right?
Right.
And after that, I didn't even want to do other types of drugs, like powdered cocaine. Like, I was bartending at the time.
Right.
I was working also like in the sex industry, and I remember there's a lot of powdered cocaine going around, and I didn't even want, like, people would put lines out for me, and I'd be looking at it like, and I'd like gather it up so I could cook it down later on, you know, because I didn't even want to snort lines anymore.
Okay. And now crack's becoming a predominant part of your life. You have some jobs. You're also working in the industry, right? At what point was it just like your back was up against the wall and everything was falling apart? Do you remember that specific feeling?
So that happened at a few different times. Like,
Okay.
do you mean like the time at which I realized I was an addict, or the time at which I realized I needed to stop?
Yeah, I think we needed to stop, right?
Okay.
Like when the addiction took over, the crack use took over, the lifestyle took over, right? When was that feeling like, wow, Margot, you need to stop?
Okay. So I always kind of had this feeling in the back of my mind, like, or I had this kind of thing in the back of my head that when shit hits the fan, when it gets really bad, I'll go to rehab. Like, rehab to me was like this unicorn that...
Yeah, the oasis.
The oasis. Yeah. And so when it gets really bad, I'll go to rehab and then I'll be cured. Like, everything will be great. And then I'll just suddenly become a productive and normal member of society. Like, that's just... And so I think in my early 20s, by this time I had moved in with two other people. We had a super cool apartment on Broadview. But like, all of us were using drugs heavily. So yeah, you know, things started getting really bad. Our hydro got turned off. We were literally sitting in the winter shivering with like duvets wrapped around us. I started getting into legal trouble. So, you know, I had, you know, gotten arrested a couple times. I was on probation, bail. Things were getting really messy. So I started, so I actually called for professional help, and I went to rehab for the first time. Okay. You know?
And how was rehab? Was it that oasis that you thought it was going to be?
You know what? Yeah, it was.
Okay.
So my experience with rehab was that it 100% was the oasis I thought it was. I showed up to the door of rehab in extremely rough shape. Like, you're supposed to show up there with 72 hours clean. That wasn't the case for me. I showed up, I'm surprised they even allowed me to come in. And it was an oasis. You know, crack psychosis is really scary. And that was like my experience leading up to going into rehab. So I was like living in fear, totally, you know? And so, you know, rehab for me was like, I was like, this is great. You know, I'm getting 3 meals a day. We're doing yoga. We're going on nature walks. This was when Chem H was up in, on Brent Cliff Road. It was beautiful. But the thing is that it ended after 21 days. And as soon as it ended, I was left with my own thoughts again, with my own habits,
Okay.
back to my apartment. And so the oasis, like in the desert, right?
Yeah.
Vanished.
As soon as it came is as soon as it left, right?
Yeah.
And then, so did you stay sober after that?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. And then how long were you back on that run for after that?
I think I stayed sober maybe for like a couple weeks or a month. I went to hair school, but I didn't finish right away. Yeah, you know, I tried a few things during that time.
Okay.
I tried to go to rehab a couple more times, detox. You know, by this time I was trying a lot of things. Psychiatrist, I was getting more desperate and more desperate.
Okay. And so you're trying all these things now. And then when was like the first time where you're like actually like got an extended period of sobriety? And what did that look like for you? And how did you do it?
I think, you know, I got to a place of hopelessness. I heard someone say recently that there's a difference between desperation and hopelessness. And I think that I was desperate for a long time.
Right.
But when I got truly hopeless, and in my mind, I had exhausted all my options.
Right.
And that came actually, I think 28 or 29. I had just had a child. Actually, my child was 3 months old at this time. And I was attending a 12-step meeting. I had a sponsor. I'd had my sponsor for, you know, a few months.
Right.
And I had relapsed and come back from that relapse, and it wasn't unlike any other relapse, but I was completely hopeless, you know, and I just realized that I was just going to keep doing this pattern over and over and over and over, and something just snapped at that moment.
Yeah.
And I decided to try the one solution that I hadn't tried before, because I kind of also consider myself an atheist, and I wasn't really willing to pray to this like fake thing in the sky. That's how I perceived it.
Right.
So I started taking some direction from some folks about, you know, spirituality, and I tried that out thinking, what do I have to lose? I was hopeless, right? So I did it.
And I wanted to touch on something too, because I mean, I can never put myself in those shoes, right? You're expecting a child and you're hopeless. Like, what was going through your mind, excuse me, at that time?
So, you know, during my pregnancy, you know, denial is a powerful mechanism that we use. I mostly didn't use during my pregnancy. I was just basically, so I gained 65 pounds in pregnancy. So I was I became a food addict essentially during my pregnancy to ward off using and drinking. What was going through my mind was that this child is going to fix me. I'm going to have this baby and then I'm not going to use anymore. That's what was going through my mind. You know, even though I was doing all the insane behaviors, I was still going to after hours clubs. I was still acting out in other ways. I was acting out in every other way except for directly using and drinking. And I thought, well, you know, now that I have a baby, I'm obviously not going to be able to use and drink anymore. That's what I was telling myself.
And now looking back, right? And I think this would be good for some of the mothers that are watching this, or people that are in that similar situation. Was that child gonna stop you from using?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Now, what else did you need with that? Now that you sort of look back at it, right? Like, what would you have told yourself at that time?
What do you mean by that?
Like, so you're about to have a child, you have all these, you're acting on all these behaviors, you strongly believe that this child is gonna save you, right? What would you have told yourself knowing now, like?
I don't know if there's anything I could have told myself. Like, maybe I would have just tried the spiritual, like surrendered earlier.
Yeah.
You know, I would have surrendered earlier. Because at the end of the day, a baby is a human power, right? Yeah.
Interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. Now, so you have this child now, or the child is born, sorry, or you're sober at that time. Okay. And how long did you stay sober for this time?
I stayed sober after giving birth for maybe 2.5 months, I think. 2.5 or 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went back out.
Yeah.
Now, how was that, having a newborn child and back into, I would say, full-blown addiction?
Mm-hmm. It was awful. It was the most depressing thing I think I've ever done. It was horrible. You know, we put our families through so much when we're in active addiction.
Yeah.
I put my mom through so much already up until that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was a new grandmother. I mean, she did have other grandchildren.
Right.
But she, like, me and her are particularly close. So, you know, after that happened and I relapsed after having the baby, my mom actually, like, basically had a mental breakdown. She left the country.
Yeah.
She left the country. She went just to the States. She crossed the border because I think she just couldn't be in the vicinity of what I was doing.
Right.
And my sponsor, actually, Layla at the time, she came over, like she actually went to my mom's house because I had dropped the baby off at my mom's house and told my mom I'm going to a meeting. And I just never came back.
Wow.
I relapsed and I never came back. And so my sponsor actually went to my mom's house and took care of the baby for a week. And on the last day of the week, she actually called a bunch of our mutual friends, her other sponsees, and they actually started a prayer group. And they like prayed, like, please, like, help Margot find her way back to the rooms. Wow. And that happened to be the night that I checked myself into detox. So I thought that was pretty cool, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you checked yourself back into detox. Did you end up getting sober after that? Like, what happened?
Yeah, I did. So that particular stint in detox was horrible. Like, I thought, you know, the thoughts that were going through my head were that, like, I've ruined everything. It's bad enough when you've ruined your own life, but when you feel like you've failed as a mother, not only have you ruined your own life, but you feel like, yeah, you're just an unworthy mother on top of that. It's very hard to shake that shame. Yeah. It's a very strong feeling of shame and worthlessness, and the amount of judgment you can just feel from everyone, you know, yourself, your family, anyone who knows. It's just hard to feel that you can even go back into the world again. Yeah. So, you know, but I remember some people, again, from like our mutual aid group coming over and cracking jokes. Humor is the best medicine, you know, in the darkest times. I think like that's something we share. And I think that's so important, you know. Some people who aren't addicts, again, I think don't understand that sometimes in the darkest moments, all we can do is like laugh at the situations we get ourselves into, right? It's just like, what else can we do?
Okay. No, interesting.
You know, the time around when I got the 7 years, I was more concerned with like, how was I going to get well? How was I going to make things right? How was I going to show up? How was I going to connect with a higher power? Right. You know, it doesn't matter what I look like, what I sound like, what people are thinking. That doesn't matter. It's none of my business. First things first, you know? Right. And that makes a huge difference.
Interesting. And now you mentioned for 7 years.
Yeah.
What happened at that 7-year mark?
Yeah. So, you know, you know, like, I mean, I could say like I was busy, I was a single mom, I was working, I didn't have support from my partner, and all those things are true. And it was a lot. I had a lot on my plate, for sure.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the truth is that I started to slack off from my program too. You know, I was working a really solid program in recovery.
Yep.
And I think that for me, the main thing is that I started to become ungrateful. You know, I had all these things in my life, right? Like I had a job, I had 2 beautiful children, I had a great apartment, I had a lot of amazing friends, and I started to almost see these things as a burden. I started thinking, poor me, you know, and I started getting annoyed by things and annoyed by people rather than feeling grateful for having such a full life. And so I started to have thoughts creep in like, oh, you know, if you wanted to socially drink, you could, you know, think just crazy thoughts like that. Yeah. And I remember coming up to my 7 years medallion, my boss said to me, you know, Margot, after 7 years, every 7 years, your body regenerates. Every single cell in your body regenerates.
Right.
And for me, it was like, okay, I've regenerated every cell in my body. I'm not an addict anymore.
Yeah.
So like, that's it. I'm good. You know, I can socially drink.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it went from socially drinking back to...
Oh, it went back to and worse. Yeah.
Back to and worse?
Back to and worse.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to go through what that looked like. I mean, a lot of people from your previous stories know like where it can possibly go. What now? How long have you been sober now?
So I have 7 years again.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. 7
years again. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question? Are you nervous now? You're back at that 7-year mark?
You know what? Thank you for asking that. Coming up to the 7 years, I was feeling nervous. I was. Yeah, I was having those thoughts like, oh, what if you relapse? But I don't feel nervous at all. Okay, I'm not going to say at all. I think it's good to have a little bit of fear because I am an addict. But I know I don't feel nervous because I don't have any of those thoughts. Okay. You know, I don't have any of those thoughts creeping in that I can socially drink. I'm connected to my program. Right. I think that every relapse, although they're painful for us, if we learn, we can always learn something from them. And what that taught me, that relapse at 7 years, was that I cannot back away from my program. I cannot turn my back on it. I have to keep going and stay connected to, you know, a power greater than myself if I want to maintain the life that I have, which is a beautiful life for me. So
that's awesome. And so now you've been sober 7 years. Things are going well in your program. Things are going well for you in school, as we can see. How are things with your family, with your children? Are you that mother that you kind of wanted to be the whole time?
Yeah, they're going good. You know, my kids are like, I can't believe it. They're 16 and almost 12, 11 and a half. So sometimes it's challenging, you know, teenagers, but it's also beautiful. I love my kids to death. I love being a mom. And the kids, you know, they know all about the program. Like they were raised half their life coming to the program. Yeah, and it's just great to, like, I learned so much about parenting from the program and from my connection with my higher power. I don't think I'd be able to be an effective and present mother without being in recovery, for sure.
How good does it feel to feel present?
Oh, amazing. There's nothing like it.
Interesting. Now, I want to ask you a question here, because are you happy?
Yes, I am happy. But I would actually say content more than happy. I'm content and I'm at peace. I think that's how I would describe it. Happy, happy sometimes, but happy to me is like, I don't know, a little bit like...
in the moment?
Yeah, in the moment. But I'm like content and I'm at peace and I feel like I can handle stress if it comes my way, you know? Handle challenges which arise in life, you know? But I am happy, I'm at peace and I'm content with life, you know? Now,
what does the future look like for you? Like, what are some of your dreams and aspirations, right? I think, like, it'd be even good for even me to hear, right? Or the audience. You've gone through all this struggle, put all this work back in yourself, becoming a good mother now, investing in yourself in school. What are some of your goals?
Yeah, you know, like I would love to be able to go back. So right now I'm looking for a job. I'm just starting back and doing that. I would love to be able to work with, you know, anyone, but especially women in addictions or even women incarcerated and work on reducing the stigma around addictions, like in a meaningful way, you know, in a way that shapes the way that addiction is seen, and hopefully to be seen more as just like a life experience and not something that's so shameful and can't be spoken about. I'd love to be part of that. And I think, you know, the way that addiction's talked about, it's almost one of the last things that it's completely acceptable to be mocked, to be like, you know, made fun of, and the way that, you know, we always hear things like, oh, you know, those people are murderers, drug addicts, and rapists, like those are morally equivalent or something, you know, like it's still very looked down upon. And I think that that's something that needs to change if we want to give people a chance to come out of it. You know, like for example, like a bunch of safe consumption sites just got closed down in Toronto. And I think a huge part of that is that people don't see drug addicts as fully human, right? It's like, well, we don't need to have services for those people. And so I think that needs to change. Another goal of mine would be, I'd like to travel one day. I would like to travel. I've never actually left North America. So I would like to travel one day. And I'm trying to get my thesis published too. I'm working with my professor, and yeah, we're working on editing it a little bit to get it published in a journal. So
that's amazing. Are you proud of the work that you put in so far?
Honestly, yeah, I am. I'm really proud of it. I worked really hard on it, and I feel good about it. Yeah.
Awesome.